your question about stoning. So I'm really
It's
sure.
not stoning, actually. My question
Is a general question?
Are there my perception is that there are rules in the Torah or guidelines, rules actually, in the Torah that are being interpreted in a different way today because my claim would be because the society will not accept that.
Mm-hmm.
And
for example, you're using.
Do the rabbis find a way to bend the rules to flow with the society?
Mm-hmm. So, and for example, the example that you're giving is the back when they used to stone kids, and now because it's became politically incorrect to stone kids.
Right. We don't stone them anymore. we just stop them.
Yes. Okay. So
we buy them an iPhone.
Yes. So like this, I think that actually the opposite is true. And actually, the exact opposite. First of all, with regards to stoning kids, you're talking from about the portion of the Torah, the beginning of Parshas Kisisa and Deuteronomy, that talks about that you'll have a child, that the child be a wayward and rebellious child, ben soreh umoreh, doesn't listen to his parents, he eats a certain amount of meat and he drinks a certain amount of wine, and they stone him. Right? First they lash him, they stone him. Right? So that's a very fascinating part of the Torah. And it's the reason why it's doubly fascinating is because the Talmud, right? Talmud says that this portion of the Torah was never actually applied, never actually happened. There was never someone who actually fulfilled all the qualifications to be considered a ben soreh moreh. It has to be a child with a very small window in his life. It has to be between 13 and 13 and 3 months. Very short amount of time. He has to do a very, very, very strange amount of things that he has to do. He has to eat like a certain amount of partially cooked meat and a certain amount of wine. He has to eat them together in a weird place. It's lots of qualifications. Very, very unlikely to happen. So much so that the Talmud says that it never happened and it never was going to happen. Lo haya v'lo asad lios. It never happened and never was going to happen. It's almost impossible to even do it physically, to eat that amount of meat and the wine all together. So why does the Torah tell us about it? Drosh for kabel schar. Learn it and get reward. So that's this in Sanhedrin 70 or 71a. It says that three parts of the Torah. It says that never happened. That never happened. But why? So why does it say to learn and to gain credit? Study it and gain credit. Study it for the merit of studying. And there is a big doctor who lives in Houston by the name of Dr. Harvey Rosenstock, and he is a very famous or very acclaimed, prominent psychiatrist, and he wrote an article about this. All the different rules of a ben soreh moreh, of a wayward rebellious child, showing all the lessons, and from a psychological perspective and there are lessons to be learned that not in the practical sense, right? So that's the example. They never stoned children, not then and not today. That specific example that you brought is something that which incidentally was never practiced. But your question was,
what about the gathering of firewood on Shabbat?
Yes, well, that's even in the Torah. The guy gathered the firewood and they killed him. That was something that they did practice.
But that wouldn't be accepted today.
Well, that wouldn't be accepted today, but not because today people don't understand the value of Shabbat. People don't recognize why it's so crucial, and therefore, when, like we talked about last week, when the temple is going to be reinstituted, people don't understand why Shabbat is that important, and yes, the Jewish court of law will be reinstated. But when I said originally at the beginning of my point was that it's actually the opposite, because 2,000 years ago, the value of human life was not what it is today. Today we value the idea all men are created equal. Every life is precious. Everyone. People have natural, God-given rights. To life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. These are Jewish ideals that were practiced for years and years and years. Specifically, the Jews were the ones who were different than everyone else, and today modern society has finally come around to accepting the Jewish principles. For example, the Romans had absolutely no value for Jewish life, and the Jews were a small group small group in the Roman Empire, and the Jews were the ones who had such a crazy value for human life, and the Romans are like, what do you mean? If a child is born with any sort of defect, of course you kill them. It's the morally correct thing to do to kill them. Of course. The child's defective, right? For sure you kill them. And for sure it makes so much sense that if someone's a petty criminal, they stole some anything, of course you feed them to the lions. You want to have criminals in our midst? Right? That was the prevailing, in the most cultural of all societies, of civilizations, that was what they considered to be moral. Now, the rest of humanity has come around to seeing the way things we've seen it. As to us, or the Jewish people modifying the Torah to their needs, that's a very, it'll be very warped. If the attitude that we have in the Torah scholarly world is that your only goal is to find out what's true. Only thing you care about is what does it say, what's true. Don't modify it. The second it's the most perverted of all things to do is to try to say, oh, this is what I believe, and I'm going to try to fit it into the Torah. That's perversion, and that's wrong. Is it possible that there were some rabbis over the years who were like that? Yes, it's possible, but we know we haven't found any of the leading rabbis to be like that. There were people that were exposed as being frauds, but not halachic people. Generally, it was more, we had the Shabtai Tzvis of the world, and the people that were exposed to be frauds. But generally, for sure, in the upper echelons of the people making the halachic decisions, they were people who cared about only one thing: what's true, what does the Torah really want, how can we apply it to today's situation. So, if you ask me, and what is it? What's going to happen when the Jewish court of law is being reinstituted to someone who collects wood on Shabbat? I believe that, despite I think that people will recognize the value of Shabbat, but this will be punishable by capital crime. I absolutely believe it, and I don't think that. I think that you ask anyone who accepts the Torah to be true, that they'll say that they'll be honest enough to say that that's what's going to happen. Society today doesn't understand it. They will understand it sooner rather than later. They'll understand it and they'll value it as well. But
basically, you're saying that there is no bending of the Torah rules.
No, I said it's a very perverted thing. It's the most unethical of things to do. Because we're not trying to make up our own information. We don't have a say. This is what we're claiming is that we have the will of God. That's what we're claiming to be. We have the Word of God, the written Word of God, and the will of God. There could be nothing worse than me to try to impose my will and say, "Oh, this is what I want. I'm going to push my agenda." What do you mean? We're dealing with the word of the will of God, Creator of heaven and earth. That's what we're dealing with. To me, to push my own agenda is the most perverted of all things. Is it possible there are people that do it? Yes, I believe there are people that do it. But what we haven't found that any of the people in the halachic decision makers to be perverted.